We are delighted to have Lisa Stano as our first ever guest on Meaningful Musical Conversations. She's a singer-songwriter, guitarist, and stand-up bass player whose style is soulful, bluesy, and definitely from the heart. While the first 20 minutes of this episode is largely a fun and delightful interview with Lisa, the second half takes a little more of a serious tone as it becomes more of a conversation between all of us as we share stories with one another and with you. Welcome to Meaningful Musical Conversations, where words are music, hearts are melodies, and harmony is our vision. I'm Jill Meunier.
And I'm Daniel Townsend, and thank you all so much for joining in on our podcast today. To my right, sitting here in the room, is a woman named Lisa Stano. Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming out today. We appreciate you being here and sharing this little musical conversation with us. I was hoping you could maybe just give us a little bit of background as to what you do today with music and kind of what you're interested in.
What I do today, primarily gigging around Sonoma County with my band. My band members are members of other bands, but I try and reel them in when I can. Mm-hmm. So a lot of Petaluma gigs because I reside there. But there was a time when we gigged in San Francisco at Cafe Claude. So trying to spend more time on songwriting and developing my skills on the double bass and just playing around town because I love playing with the team.
Oh, cool. So double bass is sort of your instrument of choice these days?
Yes, definitely. I can't say I'm the best at it, but I'm still growing. It's a lifelong.
It's something I always wanted to be able to do, so that's very cool. Nice.
It is so cool, yes. And you also play guitar.
Rhythm guitar, yes. Yeah. Primarily to accompany myself singing. That's the goal. And that's what I love doing with the double bass as well, of course. Yes. It's just, those low tones seem to just go well with my kind of natural voice.
Yes.
So those are the things, that's what I love to do together, sing and play. In fact, I feel a little naked if I have to just sing without an instrument.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know if I've heard you do that.
You probably have not.
But one of the things that I just have to say, Lisa, is that when I see you perform and I hear you, there is such a sense of aliveness that you bring to the moment, just such a sense of vitality and joy and passion. Whether you're playing the guitar, accompanying yourself with your amazing musician friends, or whether you're playing the double bass, which, by the way, we'll get into later because that's actually how Lisa and I met, through the double bass in a way. So, but I just wanted to say that it is one of the things that I so appreciate about you is your way of connecting with the audience and just the sense of authenticity and it's just, it's really a pleasure to be there with you when you're performing.
Thank you. That's the ultimate compliment. I'm glad that comes through because I feel most alive when I'm sharing music, and I view it like that. So to hear you use that word, feel connected, is a total delight for me because it just is about that. Even if there's one member in the audience, but certainly connecting with the people I'm playing with and whoever's out there just to feel what music can do for us to elevate you or take you to whatever emotional state the music, whatever direction it's turning.
Yeah, absolutely. Sharing emotional states,
Yes.
Yeah, coming back and forth on that. Has it always been like that for you? Sort of, when did you start playing kind of live,
Honestly, only about 10 years ago did I resume music. So music was in my life, I would say many, many years ago, even a couple of decades ago. And then I focused more on other responsibilities in life. And roughly 10 years ago, I made a decision to get focused again. And I had a phenomenal guitar teacher who actually truly is a double bassist, a really excellent one. So I think he had an influence on me too. But at that point, singing is what comes very naturally to me, but I know I feel most accomplished when I accompany myself singing. It's just more interesting to me. I think that's just true for me. So at that time, I made a decision to just get more serious and focused and follow through.
Wow. So I don't think I've ever really asked you that much about your early history with music, and I would love to know what your earliest memory of music is.
Certainly listening to music and not even not even really imagining myself playing at that time, but I grew up in Oakland, California, and I grew up in an area and I had a family that listened to a lot of soul, a lot of old soul. So Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder. So that music, I think you probably hear those influences when you come to a gig or listen to any of my performances. It's not even conscious, but as I reflect on it, that without a doubt, it takes me back to really the most blissful period of my life. Age 4, 5, 6, 7, running the ghetto streets of Oakland. And I didn't think that at the time. Of course, it was just the freest, purest existence of innocence and musical influences that shaped me more than I would have ever acknowledged as a young girl. But without question, when I look back, I feel and I know that that music resonates most with my spirit.
Wow. Thank you for that. I'm also just curious, is there one memory like that? Yeah, Lisa, you're so funny. Look at you. She's giggling. A big giggle. Is there one memory in particular that you could kind of call up and paint the picture for us?
It's so funny because I might have shared this with Jill before. It was a secret for a long time.
Ooh, we like
It's news to me and everyone else.
Okay, so you're right, Daniel. Good point. Good point. It's kind of funny. I mean, I can't quite tell it with the flair of my siblings, of my older sister, really. But and it's not even about playing, but it's really my first purchase of a record, a 45, if you can believe. I was probably maybe around 7 at the time, and at that point we moved from East 15th to Bancroft to live with my grandmother, so I'm envisioning the neighborhood. And there was a little record store, and I loved Chaka Khan at that time. There, this little girl 7, and there's a song called Hollywood, and I, definitely, desperately wanted that record. So my older brother, who is 4 years older than I am, walked with me to the record store, and I went to go buy my first record. I was so excited, just so thrilled. It was, all of a 10-minute walk next to this funky store called Buy Right, and I wish today that I could recall the name of the record store. But I was, yay high and maybe about 12 to 20 inches taller than I was this counter. And the person who sold the records, was behind there. And you had to ask her, what you wanted. And it's more, honestly, a cultural musical memory because you are so influenced by where you live when you grow up. So I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it was remotely funny. Nobody taught me, how do you ask for a record? How do you go to a store and do things? And, I lived in a kind of a black community. There was a way of talking. I didn't think anything of it, but I had my little white purse, according to my brother, and I looked at this woman, little girl, and I said, "You got Hollywood?" And I didn't think, I know with this kind of accent, I didn't think that there was anything wrong with that. But then my brother, when we went home, we kind of ran home. He ran to tell my mom and my sister, "You wouldn't believe how Lisa talked at the music store." I was he was so embarrassed by me. And I was just this innocent kid speaking in this vernacular that was, normal, common for my community. But he was, I guess, so that stands out just as a wonderful memory with me and my brother, because my brother, is deceased now. But anyway, so that's one memory. That's more my first purchase of a record, and not me performing. And I didn't even have fantasies of being like Chaka Khan until later, until now.
Literally.
So anyway,
There's still time.
So that memory is special because that was just a very fond childhood period.
That is really sweet. Oh, I know.
I can't. The way my sister and my brother would tell it, I mean, you're just innocent. You're like, what's wrong with what I did? And so
That is adorable. Oh my. So let's see. I was thinking about also what music was like in your house, like with your parents. And I know in my house, my older sister basically had control over the, our stereo, and it was whatever music that she wanted to listen to that kind of flowed through the house. And I'm wondering what kind of music was going on in your house, if one parent or the other was the one to play the music, or In other words, to choose the records or whatever.
Did you get to blast Choco at home?
There's
Yeah,
definitely
exactly.
Chaka getting blasted.
Okay, good.
So actually, I had my mother's boyfriend many years ago. We hung out with his family quite a bit, and you made me think about live music. So there was a lot of sort of Chaka Khan, Fleetwood Mac, Carole King,
Oh, man.
Stevie Wonder, Marvin
Yeah.
Gaye, as I said,
Love it all.
Sly.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm remembering now too, again, roughly that same chapter, we had a relative who was an amazing drummer and a crazy Kiss fan. And we would go to his house, we would go to their house, and he would be banging away at the drums. And I guess I'm allowed to say his name. I mean, he was known as Johnny Bear. And I'm sure he still is in Oakland. He's a phenomenal drummer. But he probably had no idea how indelible that was in my mind, like this
Wow.
rock. So that's like
Yeah.
our visits there were a tremendous influence. And they had a piano, and I would kind of tinker away at the piano. And I still don't really play. I've taken my share of classes, but anyway, so that was a live musical experience within a kind of a distant family or, informal family that we had.
Okay. So maybe that was the first time you felt that energy of like a live setting, and it really kind of starts to hit you. Right?
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yes. No, you're right.
Especially a big loud drummer. Shouts out to you.
I know.
You're listening.
I know. Exactly. I gotta let Johnny Bear
We love
know
you,
one
drummers.
day.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
do. Absolutely.
Yeah. Kiss posters everywhere. I'm telling you.
My dad would have liked him. My dad's a huge Kiss fan.
Oh, that's
You're
great.
listening, yeah. You're called out. That's funny. Wow. I was kind of curious. I wanted to talk to you about that music you did grow up with, which you just listed a bunch of those sort of bands. I'm curious if they kind of influence what you do today at all. If some of that, maybe it's not even so much the music, but sort of the intent of that music of that era. Does that kind of come into what you do today? I don't know. I just want to.
In part, I think the energy kind of behind it, the style, if you will, I think that subconsciously influences what I do. In terms of my songwriting, I'm not so sure that's the case. I don't think that's necessarily influenced what I do as a songwriter, but for sure, just the delivery of what I'm going to say or how I sing it, it just is so shaped by that. And to me, it's quite phenomenal because you don't think about it. It just kind of comes from your tummy and out through your mouth. And you're like,
Lisa, yes, it does. It does. With you, it really does. I love that.
and it just feels so natural. I think that's what feels so natural. And perhaps that's what it was busy doing, all of that music or hearing Johnny Bear. So I think in the delivery of my vocals, especially, it's influenced by that. But my songwriting, because there's so much political stuff during that era, early 70s. And so I don't necessarily take on political issues in my songwriting so much. I'm cautious. I don't know why, but I am.
Well, hey, yeah.
Yeah, what do you like to write about? And actually, first of all, I mean, I know that you've written a lot of songs. Could you give us like an estimate of how many songs you've written?
Oh, God. I feel like lately I'm a little remiss, but
Okay, well,
gosh, I don't know. That's hard to say because does that count unfinished tunes that are on my iPhone right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Then we
yeah.
could say hundreds. Then we could say hundreds, right? But yeah, but what do I write about? It sounds so trite and silly. I hate to say it almost like, but kind of what lives in your heart. Like, I mean, sometimes that just sounds so
Nope.
whatever. But
Sounds
it's,
great.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
wanna hear
sounds
more of
great.
it.
Exactly.
it's just the truth, and not always of my own experience, but something you observe, right? The best part for me about like traveling or just sitting in a cafe, like watching an interaction, or generating ideas from the simplest of things, right? Reading a book or listening to a podcast, listening to other people's experiences can shape and influence what more you want to say. So.
Yeah, so when you get when you're feeling that influence, like let's just say that you're reading a book and an idea comes to you, do you write it down for this? Do you try to take a note of it so that you don't forget it
Yes.
later?
Oh, definitely. I've learned that more and more, and sometimes I still fail. Like I think I'll remember an idea even, and if I don't write it down, it's gone. Like, and I sometimes I'm convinced I'll remember that the
Yeah.
next day, and I
Never.
don't.
I do the same exact
So
thing.
true.
Oh, it's
that's-
the worst feeling ever.
It is.
Yeah.
Because it could have been a great idea.
At least you can look back on it and be like, well, that was actually not a great idea. I do that all the time.
That's true, too.
Write something down. It's like, oh, Why did I think of that? Well, at least you had it. Yeah.
Yo, exactly. Me
Yeah.
too. And that's, I have to say, I love voice memos for that. So, and you can go through them later and go, oh, bad idea, bad idea.
Yeah.
Or like, this is something that has promise still. So I love the
That
iPhone
means
for
you
that.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You come back to something and you still vibe with it. It's a
Yeah.
good sign.
I'm not the only one. I love hearing
Yeah.
about that.
Oh, yeah. No,
Daniel,
absolutely. Yeah. Voice memos.
Yes.
I sometimes just don't go back through them though. Like, I mean, it might
Right.
be a year, and then finally I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what did I have back there? And
Right.
yeah,
I think that's common to wait that long. Really, I was just
Really?
clearing
Wow.
out to get room on my phone. I'm like, I gotta delete some of these, and I'm a little embarrassed. Sometimes you're like, what was I even thinking about that one? But some, that are unfinished. There was a chapter I started. I think I might have sung it for you. The beginning, I had started a song called Oakland Days. So that's like one example. So songs that reflected that period of my life.
Yeah.
So that was a recent, well, not recent, that's like a year ago. I started to work on that. And I even had a vision for an album, but you get re-stimulated sometimes to do something else or
Yes.
distracted or both. So
yeah. So actually, do you want to tell us a little bit about your album, because you do have an album out, which is a beautiful album, and it's mostly originals, isn't it? I believe.
it is mostly originals, yes. And it's funny, I think if you ask any songwriter or person who's put out an album, they probably will say, like, that seems so, it was long ago now, actually.
How many years?
I want to say it was, where are we now? Ah, gosh. Is it 6 years ago? Maybe
So-
6 years ago?
Was it
2012-ish?
Yes.
2012? Okay.
2012,
Uh-huh.
exactly. So, an album reflects that moment in time, and that was true in those moments, right? So,
Yes.
in a way, I feel the album, it doesn't reflect what I do at a live gig, because a lot of the songs are kind of quiet on the album, and my gigs, I think I have half and half. I try to be more aware now of having songs that are, full of the vitality, and also, introspective, quieter songs. But yes, there's a song that still feels very accurate today, actually called Ramblin' Feet.
I know about your rambling. Feet.
Yes. So, when I think about the album, that's the song that first jumps out at me, that feels resonant for my world today. But so you asked, I forgot the original question. Tell us what you said. Tell me about your album, Lisa.
Right.
About it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a few years ago that you did it, and it's mostly original, something kind of a little bit quieter than what we might hear in a gig. And how long? How did you did you come up with a concept for the album? Was it a collection of songs that? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it was more of a collection of songs. There was not with this album any kind of a particular vision or cohesion about the songs. It was just my collection at the time. And at that time, I felt very supported. I felt fortunate by my guitar teacher, who played a lot. And without him, that was my first experience in the studio of making an album. That was kind of intimidating. So
And who is
really,
that?
that is Jason Carr, who lives in San Francisco and is a phenomenal bassist. And I actually ran into him maybe a year ago now. Wonderful teacher, just a quiet spirit, just a calm, and communicates in a way that feels just supportive. So he was an incredible support for the album. But no, it was a collection. I was actually feeling like prolific songwriting at that time, and I was working even more, but it felt like I'd go on a lunch break and like it would just be jotting down in my car.
Wow,
It
how
was
fun.
incredible. So I think other songwriters might agree that happens for them. When it comes, you're like, wow, it's just pouring out of me. And I want it to pour out of me again right now. I need a little more time. But so I can't speak to precisely what was informing that pace, but it was, more rapid. But no, I'm proud of the album. It was a great opportunity to dedicate it to family members I had lost, and it was a great opportunity to work with my teacher. I learned so much through
Wow.
that whole experience. Everything, making the CDs to the sound engineering. It was simple too. It was simple meaning the instrumentation that reflects what I do at gigs. I love the acoustic sound, and that's what's going on there.
So yeah, gigs. You and I have talked a little bit about this, but I'm wondering what for you, Lisa, makes gigs like really fun, really enjoyable.
Well, I'm fortunate to have met, actually at an open mic in Petaluma a few years back now, the guys that I play with. So what makes it is the people you play with. I think any one of us has played with someone for whatever reason, the chemistry just isn't right, or it's not somebody you'd even have in your friend circle. So for me, you can be a phenomenal player, but if I don't perceive you as a phenomenal person, I know that sounds terrible. Maybe I don't want to play with you. By phenomenal, I just mean a kind human being who's flexible and easygoing, and it's just committed to sharing this moment without judgment, but just that you're like, if you make a mistake, the person just flows with it, and you pick up where you left off.
Yeah, you guys have a connection, like a friendship, a kinship sort of thing. I think anyone can relate, even just in a very simplified like work setting. You want to work with cool people.
Yeah,
you don't want to work,
absolutely. Yeah.
with people that just don't get you and just aren't on the same page.
Totally.
You can't get anything done that way. You guys are too focused on like not gelling well together.
Well said. No, you're right. In any life situation, right?
Yeah.
It's totally true. So just like, good friendship, you meet someone, you're like, oh, I met this nice person today. We just hit it off. How interesting.
Yeah.
The same is true for music, and it's not always easy to find like great, amazing friends. So
Yes.
it would just be like a little miracle. And like I said, the guys I play with, they have their own other bands and do all kinds of stuff in the community. But I just feel so fortunate that we connected and that I just can call on them. And we pull together and we just have fun. That's
That's
my
so good.
commitment
That is
to music is about pleasure.
Yeah.
I mean, always, I'm conscious about doing the music justice, meaning I practice and I prepare for a gig. But it's like, okay, hey, it's my guys. It's like going out on a play date when you're whatever, a young kid. You're like, all right, good to see you.
And there is such that vibe, there is such that vibe. When I was over at Ray's Deli the other time, I mean, the crowd there, when you were playing, you guys, I mean, it was just a blast. You're just, I just so appreciate your ability and desire really to kind of be at one with the audience. So that there's not this distance between you and the audience. That's my experience of it. It's like you really just kind of like invite everybody in. And
I appreciate you saying that. You reminded me. I have to tell just one other quick story related to that. I was playing at Lagunitas a couple years ago, and on my set list, I haven't played it in a while, but I usually play the night they drove Old Dixie down. And there was a gentleman in the audience who, when I played that song, his arms flew up, and I saw so much joy. He was like, whoa, like as loud as a person can be in Lagunitas. You're like, whoa, I heard that guy. He stood out. He had ridden his motorcycle, I think, from the South. He's a Southern man. So that music is Southern music. That's, and he just, when that song was over and there was a break, and he said, I was in tears when you sang that song. So I could feel his energy because that song, he has his whole history and whatever that means to him, that song. It was such a nice opportunity just to go connect with them. So always I will just naturally, of course, I'm like, hey, thank you for your energy. And I get a chance to hear about what a song meant to someone and what it was just brought to life for them. So I always remember that moment. It was so powerful because he was just on his own. He'd driven to Petaluma, Lagunitas from his road trip and full of vitality. So music has that. I feel the same way when I hear certain songs at gigs too. I'm like, Moondance is one of them. Whenever I hear that, I'm like, thank you. Yeah. And I just kind of get high myself
Totally.
as a listener.
Well, I don't want to ruin this really joyful vibe, but, I'm also just so aware of times in my life when there's been some really difficult, really sad times when music has played a part. And Lisa, I know that you and I share an experience of having brothers who died of AIDS, brothers that we just adored and were really close with. And I'm wondering, I know what kind of role music played for me at that time, which was really significant and quite unusual, actually. But I'm wondering with you if, during that time, which is just a challenging time when there's a lot of grief, if music played a role in that time for you.
Yeah, that's, let's see. I don't know that it did. Nothing stands out in my mind as far as any particular kind of healing or anything. But certainly that experience informed one of the songs. There were 2 deaths I'd experienced, and I don't think I put that on my album. It was like the term roller coaster in it. But I didn't use music during that chapter as a means to cope or get lost in music. I might have been, I don't know, I just might have been a little bit older and just, focused on something else, so lost in it. And I know at times, certainly that's been true, I think more during a breakup of music. Joan Osborne, I somehow listen to Joan Osborne endlessly during a breakup, yeah. But during that time of loss like that, I think I just kind of more went inward and didn't rely on music in a way that one might think, since it's such a powerful and helpful influence, or just when you hear a song that resonates with your heartbreak. But different heartbreak has informed my listening, I think.
Yes. Well, I know this is an interview with you, but I'd actually just like to share this experience that I had with my brother.
I was about to ask you.
Oh, cool, thanks.
I want to hear about that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was, as you know, I was really best friends with my brother, and he was the only one who lived out here in California with me, and I have 2 other siblings that live back east and my parents. But, Henry and I shared apartments through our 20s, and he, died when he was 30, but I remember that actually he flew back east to be with my sisters for the summer. And then I got a call, from my mother one day saying that he'd had this, this brain, can't remember what you call it, a seizure. Anyway, that was kind of the beginning of the end. And basically there were 2 days left after that. He wasn't really that sick before that. But anyway, so I flew immediately to see him. And at the time, I was listening to Chris Isaak, Forever Blue, and that was kind of my thing. It was just this thing. It was just, if you guys know that album, it's so, there's so much longing and sadness and grief in that album. And so when my brother I'm literally in this apartment on this bed, and he had, become very, very thin, like rail thin, and could hardly talk. And was basically just what happened to his memory is that he basically just had about 5 seconds or 10 seconds where he could remember, and so he might say something, and then he would just repeat the same question like 5 seconds later, like "Where do you live?" for example. So it was really heartbreaking for me, and there was a stereo in that room, and so I actually played that album while he was there in the bed. And one would think, as I think about that now, I think, oh my God, how was that for him? And he totally would have been able to say in that moment, that's not working for me.
Right.
But there was something about the feeling of the grief and the longing, matching the emotion, and just, it's like, it's okay. And there's somebody else in the world that's feeling this pain too. Right. And for me, it was just it was so powerful. And then, as the end got nearer, I actually began to play this other music that I used to play in yoga classes because as I was a yoga teacher for 25 years, as you guys know, but I would play this, actually Brian Eno music, I think, what is it called? Music for Airports or something. And this one piece, that's kind of taking you off into this floaty space. And so that also was really significant, I think, in helping him kind of make that transition, as I was present for him as he was making that transition to the other side, which is such an honor and an intimate moment. That said, I will say that my brother had this thing for Judy Garland and Over the Rainbow. And so even though this is probably the last 8 hours of his life, I put, as a joke, I put that on, and it was really a really sweet moment between the two of us. I happened to have that album. This is before, digital music. Yeah. And I just put on that song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, with Judy Garland singing it. And he looked at me and rolled his eyes and smiled. And it was just a sweet moment between the two of us. And, and then I went back to the Brian Eno. But I just wanted to put that out there, partly because, a lot of us, there's all these painful experiences that are part of life as much as the joyful, wonderful ones. And a lot of times we don't all get the opportunity or take the opportunity to talk about them, especially with death and things like that. So I think that I just really like being able to open up the space for people to talk about things that aren't exactly happy as well. And so, yeah, I appreciate you guys listening. It feels good to share that experience with you.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
it's powerful. I mean, it cuts right to the core.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not that I've dealt with anything quite like that in my lifetime yet, but hearing that is, yeah, it is still a beautiful thing that music can bring you together in that sort of space,
Yeah.
a difficult space like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're disconnected from each other at all.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mm.
You guys shared beautiful experiences together, and that came out.
Yeah.
Also.
Wow,
Thank you. Thank you.
it's powerful.
Mm.
It's the spiritual nature of music that's like that gets, that depth that you're sharing is that place where you can go. It has that potential.
Yes.
It's so beyond words, and words often fall short, I find, and that's where music comes in so perfectly.
So true. So true. Such a connecting force in the world. Yeah. And speaking of the world, was that a wink? I know that you love Italy and you're learning Italian and you may even be making a move shortly. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yes, I think what I want to say is I'm really excited and can't wait to move. Also, in terms of music in Italy, and it being a unifying force, I met a lot of great people through music there. And so had I not been a musician, I wouldn't have made these phenomenal connections. And so it's my hope that I will grow my musicianship and hopefully find actually a double bass instructor to grow my skills, because they need refining for sure. I have a long way to go, but and to play with others. I mean, it's like this similar goal that I have here, but I have a lot of cultural interests, and as maybe a little side note, many years ago, I longed to become an ethnomusicologist. So in a way, this is like my informal endeavor to pursue that path, right?
Wow.
So I just have a passion for culture, certainly culture that pertains to my own heritage, and I am part Italian, among other things. But so I'll travel a bit, but the goal is to work less and live more, and living more means playing music more.
Cool. Yeah. It is. And, I was thinking about the bass, your instrument that you just love so much, and how we actually met in school. But actually, that's not where I want to go right now. But I wanted to talk about the bass and the fact that I happen to know that you also love, like what you were just mentioning, culture, and you've been exploring your roots. And it's just interesting how you have this passion for the bass, which is also, about when we think of those low notes, it's really about the root chakra, in the end. As being a yoga person, I can't help, but to kind of think about these things. But it's just, it's not lost on me that you're so passionate about your roots, your Italian roots, cultures, history, and that you love the bass. So I don't know why I brought that up, but just a thought.
Yeah.
That this things ring totally true about me. Yeah. Like you say, it's like you know me well. It is. The bass is that grounding force, right? And it's just it just seems so well aligned with who I am some way. And I didn't always know that. I mean, I didn't long to play the double bass all my life. I mean, there's so many phenomenal, I'll say like true real bassists. I mean, like Esperanza Spalding or Katie Thoreau, or people who were prodigies at 7, like either picking up the violin or the bass. And my path is very different, and I'm certainly not at that skill level, but because I just my mission has been a little different. But so I fell off my train there. I was making a very important point, I'm sure.
Okay, I just came up with like 3 different things to talk about.
Okay, good. Daniel, take it away. Take it away.
Well, the first thing I realize we're going to have a lot of different listeners here, of different, some musicians, some not, and some of different musical preferences and stuff. And I'm saying this more for me too, because I'd probably make this mistake a couple of years ago, just knowing what we're talking about with double bass, and not to make the mistake of like an electric bass or something like that. That's kind of like a 45-degree
idea.
angle sort of bass that you
Right.
plug in, right? So double bass is this huge 4-stringed. It looks like a huge violin, basically. That's like taller than you probably are. It's massive, and it sounds gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's so low and just resonant and beautiful. But yeah, it's kind of like that Jack Black scene in School of Rock, where it's like cello and turns the bass sideways, right? It's like the
Yeah.
opposite of that. So
I love that you just said that.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I know.
anyway, so that was that. But where was I going after that? As far as your kind of mission with music, we haven't really met before, but just from talking in this podcast, I think I have an understanding in some way as to what your music conveys for you and what you're trying to put out for people to resonate with. And that's a lot of moments for you, right? Like a lot of your music is sort of a momentary thing, right? You're kind of writing about a feeling or a particular moment in time, right? I'm just curious about your writing, kind of your technique and what it is you're usually have in mind as a goal or kind of like a statement in a way, if that makes sense as a writer. You know?
Well, a cohesive story, cohesive experience. So an ideal will come, and then, I mean, it's really kind of like an English writing assignment, the kind of investment that's required to complete a song. It's very exciting, but it takes a lot of time also. But so I just want to make sure you have to think about, is this perspective coming from me? Is this a narrator position?
Right.
Would this message come across more clearly from a different voice, a third person voice? And so I have to consider that. And I'm thinking about images that prompt feelings, right? Those visuals, right? So a couple years ago, I submitted a song for Tiny Desk. And I wrote a song inspired by the notion of the Tiny Desk concert from NPR Tiny Desk. And the song was called Evolutionary Desk. And so, but it got me thinking about the desks in my life, right? Starting from like kindergarten and like third grade or high school. And so just being very mindful, just like you would in any well-written school paper or a letter or any writing assignment or writing opportunity, you're thinking about, well, how can I evoke this, sensation in the listener? Can they experience what I was experiencing and what I'm trying to convey? So just thinking about the word selection that can invoke a physical sensation and emotion.
Whoa. I really want to hear that song now.
It's really cool. You can find it on YouTube.
Okay, good.
Lisa
What's it
Stano.
called? What's the title? One more time. For everyone?
Evolutionary
Okay,
Desk.
Good. Evolutionary Desk.
Evolutionary Desk.
There we go.
Lisa,
Thank you.
speak
Into
into
the
the
mic.
microphone. I turned myself to look at
That's
Daniel.
okay.
And
There we go.
Yeah.
I love that sort of like theming, like involving like a desk and having that be sort of the catalyst or like the driving, that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that sort of thing in writing when you have that sort of vehicle that's being used to tell a story. That's amazing.
Yeah, you're looking for inspiration. Like, what do I want to say? I want to write a new song for this contest. What is it? You're like, well, this is about desks, sort of. It's about a lot of things. But for me, I'm like, wait a minute. It got me to think about what are my perceptions about a desk?
Yes.
I mean, in each person, if you think about your first experience with a desk, I mean, it could have been preschool and what that sensation was. And then what other notable chapter in your life was there a desk, be it college or work? Has a lot of negative connotations,
Yep.
a desk too. And the song speaks to that, kind of the confining experience of a 9-to-5. So that whole idea. So I loved it. I loved the Tiny Desk inspired that new song.
That is
That's
so
so
cool.
cool. Yeah, it really is.
Wow.
So it's a thoughtful process. And I'll tell you, I think, and I encourage everyone who's interested in songwriting, still keep reviewing your songwriting books. Like I have still many on my shelf. Like, God, let me just stop a second and and think about what approach I want to take. Or
Right.
Sometimes it's fluid, sometimes it's not. The whole brainstorming, you kind of write one word in the center, and then you think about what other words or thoughts. Yeah,
Right.
That worked for
The
Olivier.
clustering.
I wrote a song, Olivier. We
Oh,
all
yeah,
know
that's
that.
such a fun song.
Yeah.
Jill taught me that exercise a couple weeks ago.
Oh, the clustering, yeah.
Yeah.
A book I read actually back probably in the 80s. It's called Writing the Natural Way.
Oh,
It's
okay.
such a great book if you're wanting to write, like about for example, a poem about a person or a song or whatever, or an essay. And anyway, I highly recommend the book. It's called Writing the Natural Way, and there's this whole technique of clustering so that you're freeing up what she calls your design mind, and letting go of the editor. And then it's pretty cool. Yeah. So all the subconscious material comes up, and I love that process.
Would you like to explain that process a little bit
Ooh.
for the listeners? Because I found it fascinating, and what it did for me was give me more imagery in my words, but I'll let you kind of.
Well,
Nice.
yeah, just kind of in a nutshell, basically you're picking a topic. I've sometimes wanted to write a song for a particular person, like my husband or my mother. And so basically putting that person's name, or it could just be a topic like fear or love or whatever. So you put the topic in the middle of a blank page and you circle it. And then just really quickly, like so that you're not even really thinking, you make a line. So whatever comes up in your head to that related topic, like love, you circle the word love and then put a line. And then whatever comes up in relation to that, like a whole bunch of different things might pop up, like pink or, and then you circle pink and something comes off of pink, and you keep letting these webs of words and images arise that you think like, well, I don't know how that relates to that, but you just keep going. And, you might have like a bunch of different lines that are coming off of the word love that you're clustering on each one of those different words. And you just keep clustering until you get this feeling inside that you actually know what you want to write about. And like, it just kind of comes out, and you just let yourself write this, the words just kind of can come out on the page pretty effortlessly. And then after that, you can go back and you can use your editor mind and kind of come back and refine. But it's a pretty cool way of even just getting to know what's going on inside of us, because I don't know about you, but everyday living, I mean, it's like you're just kind of going along. And even as somebody myself who journals and consider myself pretty self-reflective, there's still, just like stuff that is under the surface. And so I love having that process of the clustering, and then, being able to use it for songwriting now.
Fully support it. I certainly was remembering my process. And Olivia is the one song that comes to mind where I actually spent a lot of time doing that. So my process is similar, but a little different.
Tell us.
Yeah, just because you spoke about the feeling part a little bit later after this kind of freeing of the mind. For me, it's almost right away the feeling part. So Olivia is about a fellow I met on an airplane who was like a missed opportunity, but we had a really nice little chemistry sitting next to each other. But so it's easy for me to close my eyes and think about what I'm like. What do I feel? What was the most resonant aspect of this experience? So with Olivier, who had this really one of the sexiest French accents I might have ever heard in my life, I'm like, oh yeah. So that became this. But I was like, but I began to think about, but feel too. What do I want to say about this? What aspect? But so, often will point to kind of my tummy. I'm like, oh yeah, or my heart. I'm like, oh okay, yes, right. So it is so much, of course, about the emotional aspect. That is what it's in. What am I feeling about this? That informs the song. So, which is what you got to after. I try and go there initially if I can. I close my eyes a lot too to feel it.
Yeah, the sensations in your body and the emotions, and actually that is part of the, really part of the clustering. And so, and that song, Lisa, I've heard you sing it numerous times. It's a really fun song. I'm sure it makes other people think of the similar kind of experiences.
Everybody has an Olivier, at least one in their life, right?
It's true.
So I was also thinking about what kind of, I don't know if speaking about like fantasies, if you have a musical fantasy of like, if you could, well, I have like a couple questions maybe. If you could close your eyes, or if you could just blink and you could play any instrument with like as well as you wanted to, and you didn't have to practice or anything, like you just close your eyes, you open them, your eyes again, and you're just, you can play a certain way. What would you want to, where would you want to play? What would you want to collaborate with anybody? Like, what's your fantasy?
It's so personal. Right away, I wanted to know your guys' fantasies. I'm like, wait, let's share this. Oh, my fantasy is definitely to play the double bass with ease and sing. And I always want to play with other people. 9 times out of 10. I mean, sure, I enjoy by myself for a moment. No, almost 100%. I really prefer to play with people. My fantasy, yeah, to play in Europe all over and bring that love that I feel when I play music to others, and to grow. Obviously, well, if I woke up and fantasize, I wouldn't need to grow my musicianship. I would be there. I just would be the light. I love it. Definitely, I would play the bass with others and just a lot of jazz, more originals. But I would just be a pro at that instrument. I could solo easily.
Yeah.
That dream is going strong. Like, yes, let's channel this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, but that is my vision right now. So I'm into making my dreams come true.
I love that about you. And it's also inspiring. So yeah, like just taking that one little step. Does it matter to you like what kind of venue you would play at? Do you have any vision of type of venue or
outside? A lot of outside. So perhaps I'm looking at spring and summer without even realizing it. But outside venues to feel just fantastic. But if it's not outside venues, small and intimate. No matter what, small and intimate.
Yeah.
At the gigs I play, I prefer a place that has character. Sometimes I will have played a place only once because it was just a one-time experience I wanted to have, and that was enough. But if a place doesn't give off a certain vibe, I don't know if it's not warm and cozy, I'm generally not interested in playing there.
Yeah.
I know that sounds whatever, but that's just the truth about me.
We're really attracted to what we're attracted to, and yeah, it's wonderful to celebrate that.
Yeah, so that's my hope. I'll let you know. When I move to Europe, where I'm.
Cool.
What does that mean? Wait, can't I ask you about your fantasies too? I'm like,
Maybe another time.
Okay.
No, we should. We got time.
Do
you wanna go
I
for
really
that?
want to hear. This is a very special question.
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
it just felt like.
Oh my God.
So the question is, if I could choose one, do I have to choose one? Because I choose them all.
You can
Let's be honest.
choose them all, but let's maybe just start
Try to
with
pick one?
one
Okay.
to like you close your eyes, you can play any instrument as well as you want. You don't have to practice, you're there.
Oh, geez. It would probably be some sort of brass or woodwind. Probably be a saxophone, and I'd probably go for a tenor if I was to choose
Oh my
between the
gosh, I didn't
saxophones.
know this about you.
Yeah, no,
I love
I've okay. So I used to work at a music store, and I've been thinking they rent out saxophones and stuff.
Okay.
I've been thinking for a long time, like maybe I'd pull the trigger and just kind of learn on my own for a while and bite the bullet, but I haven't gone there yet. Yeah, I think I would choose that mostly because I think it's such an expressive instrument. The people that can play those things well can fly. They can do anything they want. It's incredible. It just seems like not an easy instrument to connect with, but one that people are really good at expressing through. I don't know. There's something really cool about those instruments.
Yeah, I agree.
And it
Yeah.
looks like players have fun doing it too. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Oh my God.
that would be great. I would love to learn how to play that thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
You're gonna fly soon, then. Well, we just because you said people can just fly. We're gonna see that in your future, Danielle.
Yeah,
Yes,
we'll see.
absolutely.
I'm excited to hear that. That's just.
Oh my God! So I still want to hear it because you said that you had more than one. So what else?
Oh, geez. I learned anything in like an orchestra setting.
Okay.
Mostly because lately I've been really into film scoring and orchestrating. And so I'm
Wow.
actually orchestrating music a lot at home.
Neat.
And I can't play most of those instruments. And it's frustrating because I'd like to know the ins and outs of the real capabilities of it.
Yeah.
You know, the sort of ranges and the sort of sounds you can get out of them. I'm not too familiar yet. So I'm kind of doing my homework on
Right.
that.
Do you think you're going to be? I know that you're at Sonoma State right now. You're going into your senior year.
Yeah, yeah.
And will you learn that? Did you take Bennett Freeman's theory? His jazz theory, the year long
course? No, I haven't. At Sonoma State, I've probably taken something
Okay.
similar that's beyond that of what
Yeah.
he teaches there. But no, I'm not going to learn that at Sonoma State unless I decide to take the courses. Even they won't be necessary for my degree at Sonoma State. But
Well, I just want to put a plug in for Bennett's
yeah.
year-long
Absolutely.
jazz theory class because he actually does teach us that. That is one of the things. In fact, I have a book that you can look at
That'd be
later
cool.
that has all the different instruments.
yes, that'd be very
and
nice.
all the different, where they, their
The
capabilities,
ranges and
basically,
whatnot.
their
Yeah.
ranges. Yeah.
I have a couple list of books that I'm going to be getting next paycheck coming by. But the one thing that Sonoma State's taught me really well is to arrange for big band, like jazz big band stuff.
Oh,
So
sweet.
I'm pretty familiar with those instruments.
That's
but
great.
There's like woodwinds in the
Okay.
orchestras that I'm not
Yeah.
so familiar with yet.
Got it.
Totally exciting.
Yeah.
I really, you're making me think about. I watched The Godfather again for the millionth time, and
How could you not?
I know, why not? On every day off, I'm just thinking about
Everyday
the,
Godfather.
but all the music and film. I just,
Yeah.
I want to hear more about that.
Oh my God, that's
I'm
what
so
I wanted to
excited.
do after I graduated from college.
Oh my
actually,
gosh.
yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I was living in San Francisco, and I really wanted to actually go. That was my thing. I really wanted to study film scoring. I was thinking about going to a school in Oakland. What is it?
The Jazz Conservatory.
No,
it's called that
it's
now.
In Oakland.
Oh,
not
sorry. I was
SF,
thinking
but-
of Berkeley.
Yeah, it's Mills College actually.
Oh,
It was, but anyway, yeah. But I'm happy with what ended up happening. It's interesting ages. We haven't really talked about age, but actually that's another thing that I kind of want to bring up because it's so like taboo sometimes to talk about ages and age differences. But anyway, I'm 58 and Daniel.
23 as of last week.
And you don't have to say,
I'm in my 40s.
There you go.
you're in your 40s. Okay.
Musicians are musicians. And
Exactly.
know?
And that's the beautiful thing because I mean, even though Daniel, you're 23 and I'm older, it's like I just, totally connect with you as a person. And, age really, I think just souls are souls and, it's really easy to connect with each other.
it's just another label we don't need
Exactly.
to worry
Well
about.
said.
But-
exactly.
But in terms of like knowing, well, that was a long time ago and I've had like a whole life of, career from the age of 25 to now. But as I was saying, because sometimes I've looked back and I'm like, I'm thinking about people that I know now who are, in their 20s and they're in school doing what I would have loved to have done back then. Paths not taken and, for whatever reasons. But as I will have to say this, that even though I went back to school at age 52 to study
So
jazz
awesome.
piano, which I'd really wanted to do in my 20s. And I tried and I just did not have the internal resources, to be honest. I was so perfectionistic and self-critical and I just couldn't do it, even though I tried. So, but yeah, I'm very happy with the life that I did, choose to embark on as a yoga and mindfulness teacher for all those years. And in fact, feel like it's really supported me and enabled me to actually go through the trauma of like learning to
It
do
is
this
traumatic.
thing that I want.
It is.
People
I hate to
mistake it.
admit
Oh my
that. I know
gosh.
that's the truth. That's the behind the scenes truth that
Yeah.
no one in the audience, unless they're a musician, can really appreciate. Right? The painful steps
Because
to become.
yeah,
the
I mean,
musician.
I don't know about you, Lisa, but and we will get back to that fantasy, by the way. I'll be happy to share one with you eventually. But yeah, going back to that, like, for me, I know that I starting out and having grown up playing classical piano and all the way through undergraduate school all those years ago, 40 years ago now. Or 35, I guess. But yeah, going into a jazz improv class at a junior college with 18-year-olds, pretty much all of them male, and being this older woman in the class, and then having to get up in front of people and immediately begin to improvise on my instrument when all I had done was ever read music was pretty terrifying, and literally my hands would just shake back and forth, and I was so scared initially, and so I really had like a lot to overcome, which I feel really grateful that I've overcome that. But I'm wondering, did you have any ever experiences of I don't know, just being afraid to play in front of other people, or learning the double bass, like what was that? Because that's where we met, was in the improv class of Bennett's. And
Yeah.
4 years ago.
In some ways, one might say that I did my music career backwards, right? I went out and performed without having, I think, adequate theory behind music, and to understand more fully what I was doing. So I went out into the world of like greater comfort. Gigging was fun, and I won't say easy, but it was natural and more comfortable. So yes, when I I had only been playing the double bass for 3 months, so playing, quote, playing. And I asked the instructor, is this okay? Could I come in here? Should I know more? He's like, come on in. So, even the warm-ups, even today, I don't do those warm-ups. I'm like, they're moving so fast. My hand can't move that fast. So those are just scales, arpeggios. Oh, yeah.
So this is Bennett's class that you're talking about.
The jazz, the improv class. It was a surprise to me. I'm not an anxious person. I'm very relaxed, but I would actually have heart palpitations on my drive to the class. I'm like, oh my God, this is what, but that was and I wouldn't have said this then, that's healthy, right? Like to push yourself. But people would say that to me and I couldn't take it in, but I was like, when you place yourself into an area of, I'm going to say total incompetence, even though I wasn't totally, it was totally new to me. 3 months on a double bass.
3 months is not much.
Yeah.
This is intimidating.
Yeah.
So, it's like going into another country, not knowing the language, or going into, be a doctor and perform surgery. And you don't know what you're doing. You're like, I don't know yet.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so you go in, but someone's making the demand of you to play these scales, this quickly. So obviously I couldn't, so I would just fudge it, and I relied on some of my other bass players in my section to help me out. But yeah, that was probably my first experience with anxiety in music. I had gotten nervous before a couple of times, many years ago, but I don't. Performing in that class is also nerve-wracking. Being in a class setting, performing is totally different from a gig. A gig is fun and engaging. It's totally different.
You're looking at you feel probably like other musicians are like trying to like critique you as you're up there, And,
Maybe that's
the
it.
instructor's certainly up there trying to, critique you. Bennett. No.
We love you, Bennett.
Yeah, we love you. No, it's all good. That's
Thank
your
you,
job.
Bennett.
And we appreciate you and what you've taught us.
We do,
No doubt about
absolutely.
that. But yeah, it's a different space. It's not, Dare I say not as fun? I don't know.
Yes and no, yeah. In some ways, it's more rewarding because you know how painful and how nerve-wracking it is. So when you do one thing great and you get one little positive word of feedback, feedback, you're like, oh God, he said I did this well.
Yeah.
So in that respect,
goodness.
it's more rewarding. Down the road, after you play something that he perceives as good.
Yes, absolutely.
We can relate to that. It's a different setting, but setting does matter. So that reminds me a little bit of like a songwriting circle or songwriting in the round. Oh, songwriting in the round. Sorry. Where it's quiet and intimate, but quiet. So I like intimate. People are making noise, clinking drinks in the background and chatting. But it's a different experience, a little more nerve-wracking if everybody's really listening closely. It parallels that class experience where you're like, oh, the spotlight's on you. But at a gig, the spotlight is not entirely on you. People are doing stuff, but they appreciate what you're doing. And you can connect with some people, and other people are doing whatever they're doing. So there's a different kind of energy.
Yes.
It's
Totally.
Yeah,
anxiety
I
producing.
totally know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great way of putting that.
And so even like at some of the jazz jams that I've been to where everybody's actually really listening and the spotlight is right there and you have 2 songs. And I've found that honestly like a little bit nerve-wracking, especially when the people in the audience are like high-level musicians. Which but it's all good. It's all fun. And for me, it's so much about just learning how to remember in the moment what's important and basically just being present and remembering this is what really helps me, that it really just doesn't matter, that it's the thing that matters is that I'm just present and relaxed and enjoying myself, and that nobody's going to die. Right? I remember somebody actually at the JC, a guest, it might have been Kendrick Freeman, who's a drummer actually at Sonoma State, and he had been a guest in our class. And I remember this is a number of years ago, and I had just finished doing like a little solo on the piano. And this was still when I could just like barely play. And I remember I just felt tremendous amount of shame afterwards. Oh my gosh, I would have these shame attacks. I don't know, maybe Lisa, you don't have shame attacks, but I have had like tremendous shame attacks. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But I remember like looking at Kendrick and just saying, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. And he just looked at me and he said, hey, nobody died.
Oh.
And
That's wonderful.
yeah, which is wonderful. And I also just want to give a shout out to Kenny Werner and the work that Kenny Werner is doing, WERNER. And he has the Effortless Mastery book and DVD. And that work, when I started to just use that like to literally read it like every morning a little bit, that really, really, really helped me with this whole idea of to just let go of any sense of trying to make something in particular happen and just allow what's present to happen. And it doesn't mean that we don't practice, that we don't work on our craft. And maybe some of us, like myself, are more vulnerable to shame attacks than others. I'm used to being able to do something well. And I guess, honestly, I've stayed away from things in the past that I didn't do well. And, I'm not one of these people that could just effortlessly sit down at the piano and play by ear. And, so it was kind of embarrassing for me to do something like really, quote, poorly, where, my hands are shaking and it was, but the great gift, the tremendous gift that's come from this is learning actually how to accept myself. Even, it's interesting because even being embarrassed was a thing for me. Ooh, I don't want people to see, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm like used to being relaxed, helping other people relax, and then to just find myself being seen by others as like, I'm shaking, I'm red-faced, I'm scared, and doing it anyway. And then being able to go home and go, learn how to soothe myself, just it's okay. And having this internal voice that can say, it's okay. I accept you just how you are in this moment. And, basically kind of like being that inner parent that's totally loving and kind and generous and supportive. And so learning how to strengthen that internal voice has been just really, really key for me to actually be in that place of enjoyment as opposed to, self-criticism. Not that doesn't like ever come up, but I would say it's doesn't really come up that much anymore. It's been 6 years and I've really taken this on as a personal practice. And the last thing I'll say about that is the other gift that's come out of it, honestly, is I feel so much freer in just my everyday life, being able to express myself because I'm not afraid of like making a fool of myself anymore, because I think honestly, that's partly what it was about. Like, oh my God,
Absolutely.
So yeah,
that kind of reminds me of what you were saying earlier, Lisa. It's like playing with the right people. The right people aren't going to be super critical of what you're doing. You're usually able to kind of just play as yourself and not think too hard about it. And that's also why that's fun.
Exactly.
Playing with the right people. It doesn't feel like, hopefully not, anxious tendencies with the right people. That's the thing.
No, that's the ease that comes.
So when you go
sure.
on stage with the right people, it's like, we got this. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to work together.
Totally.
Or a nice
said.
surprise, sometimes even a nice surprise when you're playing with someone you've never played with before and it goes well. You're like, hey, that was an unexpected great chemistry and just appreciation for one another.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I actually I know you're doing the interviewing right now, but when Jill, you were talking, you made me think, and I was very curious about you all because it made me think about myself, about what other musicians or what musicians, if any, for you have said something that really resonated for you in support of your music, like just the indelible in your mind. Because I when you were talking about your personal journey with this book, but sometimes an instructor, a tutor, what have you, a music instructor somewhere along your path might have said the 1, 2, 3 things, that felt like, oh yeah, thank you. It's like, okay, right.
You mean positive reinforcement in some way?
Oh,
or?
yeah, exactly. Something you're like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you don't have to answer my question, but but it certainly
I
made
like
me
that
think
question.
about
It's a great question.
Because you're talking about your own journey and having to do it on your own, but we have influences and words from a professor are far more powerful and lasting than they may ever realize. And so that was just when you were speaking, it made me feel that.
Okay, well, honestly, that's a really interesting question. I have a pretty brief answer to that. What a surprise! But honestly, I really don't feel well. My first piano teacher, actually, or not my first one, but Nina Pollock, a classical piano teacher, she actually gave me a lot of words of encouragement and actually wanted me to go to music school for college instead of regular college. She was actually the Syracuse University piano professor. But that, so that was one person that was really encouraging. But I kind of just didn't believe her, honestly, because. Well, whatever. But and then over my jazz time, or just my most recent, escapades here over the last 6 or 7 years, I would say there was one thing that happened, and well, besides my husband calling me the piano boss a couple of times, okay, which I have to say,
cool.
he's like, yeah,
That's cool.
seeing me at jazz combos, are like, Jill, you're the piano boss. That makes me feel really great. But actually, believe it or not, Bennett, the last time, so I was just auditing jazz improv class. It was, I think it was maybe 2 semesters ago or something, last year, and I was basically I was in jazz rep class, and I was the piano player for like a little group, and so this is 7 years in, and afterwards, and I soloed and everything, and afterwards, I think you remember this, Lisa, I might have told you, I was sitting down in a chair, and Bennett was sitting next to me, and he just looked at me and said, Jill, you sounded really good. You really sounded good, Jill. You're timing everything. And so, I mean, honestly, that just, it kind of like went straight into my heart, and it just made me feel really happy inside. But that's basically it. Probably, I would say that's the only thing. Like of all those years. But anyway, yeah, how about you guys?
That's huge.
But it is pretty
Talk
huge,
to
I have
anyone
to
at
say.
the JC, if you told them that story, they'd be like, what? No.
Exactly.
Okay, not to say Bennett's negative all the time.
No,
He's not,
no.
Not at
It's-
all. But
yeah.
it's just one of those things that we're all kind of wanting. Well, this made me think of recently. The only story I could think of is recent, and it's very small. It's a very small comment. But so, like I was saying earlier at Sonoma State, we were doing a lot of big band chart stuff. So I basically did a composition, or not a composition, but an arrangement of Fly Me to the Moon for a jazz big band. And so what we will do is basically we'll spend a couple months getting these arrangements together, and then all the arrangers will come in and we'll have the whole actual band of all the students there, and we'll play through the chart. We'll play it a couple times, then we'll record it and just see how it goes. So I was listening back to the recording of my song. I have it on my computer at home, and we're playing through the whole chart. It comes to an end, and big jazz finish or whatever. And the instructor, Doug, is he's like, awesome, cool tune, just in his cool way. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Just that little thing was like super enough, because there's a lot of effort put into those.
Boy.
And it was just really nice.
Oh,
comment.
God. that feels
Fabulous.
good. I can feel
Because
it.
you have respect for here's the person who you admire, right? So that's why same with your story, Jill, right? Here's this person saying something to you, like it means so much when you like revere this person. You're like, wow, and they've taught me everything I know, and he's paying me a compliment. These few words, that you said, they go directly to the heart. You're like, whoa, I did it. You feel success.
Yes.
You feel accomplished. Like,
Yes.
wow, okay, I got a compliment. I mean, like the child in you comes out. It's true, but just I think it inspires you to keep growing.
Yes.
It's reinforcement, obviously.
It's super, yeah.
You're doing it right.
Instructors are the best at that.
Yeah, we need them.
Yes. Oh, such gratitude for music educators.
Oh yeah,
Totally.
big time,
Tremendous.
big time.
My private guitar instructor, I grew up learning from, was always very encouraging in that sort of way. So that helped me stay on track with it instead of just not being that interested in it.
Yeah.
That was, I think, pretty important. And he's kind of stuck around in my life after that.
Oh, neat.
Which is really nice. Yeah.
That's really sweet.
It's a great relationship. Him. Yeah. Brody.
Brody.
Brody Cumming.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You can look him up on YouTube. He's got a huge 100 riffs video that went
Oh, cool.
viral 10 years ago.
How do you spell his last name?
Cumming. Yeah. And Brody, Brodie. This is kind of funny.
Great.
But yeah.
I'm gonna look that up.
He's a great guy. Yeah, I can
Nice.
show you after this real quick. It's a cool video, but yeah, he's a great guy
Nice.
and always encouraged me. Yeah.
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 So big shout out to all our music educators, everybody that's helped us along the way, and all
big
the
time.
connections. I mean, Daniel, I'm connected to, partly through music, but yeah,
definitely.
and Lisa for sure. And it's just a beautiful thing.
We wouldn't know each other if it wasn't
Exactly.
through music,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Music builds bridges. It's
Yes,
beautiful
it does.
across the globe, and maybe beyond. I don't know.
Yeah.
That I don't know about. I can only speak about my worldly experience.
Yeah.
No.
Totally.
But no, it's true. It's such a gift.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to share, or Daniel, questions, or?
I had one comment. I was flipping through your website, which you guys can look up if you're listening. Lisa Stano is the URL, just lisastano.com. Right. So if you look on her website, if you're interested in her music, she has like a lot of lyrics posted on the website,
yeah.
which I thought was cool. Like you don't see that at all these days. Like
She's a hard worker too. She's like typing all that stuff in.
I know,
and-
that's so
yeah.
cool. Like I just thought that was really like fascinating, especially because like back in the day of the records before I was alive and the
Yeah.
dinosaurs, like they had lyrics inside
That's
the
right.
records and stuff, and
Yeah.
people were able to connect with that. And now you look them up online if you really want to.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I thought that was really cool. Like
Thank
that you put the
you.
lyrics on your website. I
Thank
just
you
wanted to-
very much
wanted
for
to say
that. No, it's kind of, albums are making a comeback, thank goodness. But the art, the craft of a great album is not lost. I'm glad just like 70 styles are coming back.
Yeah.
So no, because you want to hear, you can hear for my songs, you can hear, because I'm not playing over loud guitar or anything, but as a listener, I appreciate what's the message, because you feel something based on lyrics, based on chords, but to have the opportunities, or if you want to learn the song, and as a person who does a lot of cover tunes too,
Yeah.
I want to learn what
Yeah.
are they saying here? And then you actually can feel it more.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
To perform it, or just as a listener, you're like, oh yeah, I get what they were trying to say here. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah. Those days of just sitting with the album cover,
Right.
Open and just like listening to the music and looking at the lyrics. Like every single time I would listen to the song, I would have, the album.
Of course,
cover
yeah,
open,
yeah.
Like
And you're
staring
looking at the
lyrics.
artwork too. So you hear the
Yes.
music, like probably now you hear that music and you don't have the artwork in front of you, but it's like in your head while it's
Right.
playing, right?
Yes,
The entire
Exactly.
time.
Exactly.
And that-
I'm thinking
The
of Led
album
Zeppelin
covers.
right now. Sorry.
Exactly.
Right?
No. Well, that shows how much art there really is behind this thing that can
So
be,
true.
connected together. And some of that is lost today, but not in all ways. Definitely not.
Yeah, it's such
cool.
a beautiful opportunity to express oneself. Like when you're asking about the album, where's there an idea and a vision? That in your music, you can put an album together. Like I've got something to say, and that's why music is a powerful force for some people, for sure, for a political voice or advocacy.
Yeah.
And it's resonant for so many people because it does speak to issues of humanity, loss, love,
Yes.
hope, devastation, catastrophe, whatever, you name it. It is this vehicle to feel what human beings experience and want to connect through.
Absolutely. Well said, Lisa.
Totally.
Well,
Yeah. I feel like we're coming to a close here.
I think so, too.
Any last thoughts or comments from anyone?
Just a tremendous thank you. And I just have to say, I'm giving big props. I have to say, it looks like Jill has something else to say. I was about to give props.
Of course.
Okay.
Okay, before you give props, I got to give props to you because we got to tell the audience that it was Lisa actually that came up with, as I was discussing this idea, Daniel and I came up with this idea to have this podcast, and I was excitedly telling Lisa about it one day, and she said, Jill, it sounds like you want to have these meaningful musical conversations. And I said, oh my gosh, exactly, Lisa, that would be a great name for our podcast. And so that's how the name came about. And so, Lisa, I just want to really thank you for all the support, encouragement. Talk about encouragement. I should actually include you you're so encouraging to me. And as a fellow musician and somebody that I admire, I just really, really appreciate your support and your comments and your support around songwriting as well, because you have great ideas for me. You're like, have you thought about trying this? So I also, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of your encouragement and your support. And both Daniel and I give a huge shout out to you for the, You
The
know,
name
like
is
the
beautiful,
name.
and
Yeah.
you coming out here and sharing your experiences.
And being a first.
yeah,
Yes.
and being the first guest.
I feel really lucky right now. I'm just, thank you so much for that shout out. I'm just thrilled. I think your idea here is phenomenal. I'm in love with it. So it's easy for me to be enthusiastic about it. I often say I love talking about music almost as much as I love playing it. I mean, I have some friends who are walking music encyclopedias, and I just love to not just pick their brains, but just share in the delight of music. So what you're doing here, this vision and where it will go and how people will appreciate it, is just immense. And so it's easy for me to be encouraging about it. It's just awesome because when I'm living in Europe, I'm going to be listening to your podcast. So like, those are my friends. Look what they're saying
And you
now.
can check out my episode.
Yeah. Exactly. The very
Very cool.
first, I know. So I just can't say enough. I just applaud you in creating. I love it. You know, there's nothing, and then there's something, right? An idea, like what music can be, what this podcast is. It's just wonderful, and people love to talk about music. You don't need to be a musician, obviously, to talk about music, and it has such a powerful effect. So I look forward to listening to what others have to say, what others feel, and what has informed their life through music. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah. Once again, everyone listening, it's Lisa Stano, and you can check out her website, lisastano.com. And she has that album out that we talked about earlier, so go check that out as well. She has some videos online and the lyrics online too. I'm a fan of that. So yeah, check it out. Any social media plug or anything that you have?
No, nothing other than the usual. I don't really Instagram. So Facebook has my gigs usually more, and then my website. And I do plan to create a far more active YouTube channel. So be on the lookout for that with my double bass tunes, originals, and covers. So
Sweet.
look forward to that.
Nice.
Very awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today, and we will see you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.